So let's start off with Ambika. And Ambika will be talking the turbulent environment for today, how things are. The director for global talent transformation and executive recruitment in Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and she's based out of Singapore, and continuously she is working for HR of Hewlett Packard. So let me put the mic to you, Ambika. You can start off from here.
Thank you, Ajay. Thank you, everyone, for joining this session and giving me the opportunity to join you virtually. Can you hear me fine?
Yeah, excellent. Go ahead.
Thank you. Look, firstly, all my felicitations to the faculty and especially to the two teachers who were, I'm sure you don't remember us because we were so many, but to Dr. J.K. Sharma and Professor Madhavi. I clearly remember all your lectures and all that you shared. Finance was a very challenging subject for me, but those 25 years we have made some good use of the learnings that came from the department. For today, I would like to actually talk about, of course, myself and my journey and what I can share, but base it in the context of the VUCA world. I don't know if how many of you have heard about it. You can share on chat, but let me share my screen and take you to a bit of this journey. So bear with me as I share it. When you see my screen?
Yeah, fine.
Fantastic. All right, so friends, VUCA world and VUCA gets used as an acronym a lot. In my role, as you can imagine, managing a region which is as diverse as Asia Pacific and Japan, including India and China, it bears a lot of challenges. And in your world as well, it is going to be the new normal. What is it all about and what it means for us? Let me share with you. But before that, let me go through a bit of my journey. This is the moment where we all get to feel special and talk about ourselves. But really, the idea for me to share this here with you is to firstly assure the class of 2021 and 22, depending on wherever you are from, and also to share with our faculty, some of whom we haven't been able to keep in touch as to, what the journey was from 25 years ago. For me, it was very interesting because I completed my MBA with HR specialization in 95. And as you can imagine, in those times, even though corporate India was waking up, Lucknow University MBA was an entity that was very esteemed. However, being in a state and location, the industry linkage was obviously limited and upcoming. So here I was, you can imagine, in 95 with no campus job, no campus placement, and obviously, looking to enter the corporate world. I was starting at this foot where a lot of you might find yourself starting, and including a lot of graduates in the coming world, just because of the challenges that our economy is facing globally, but also because of the fact that that jobs are changing, career is changing, and not everyone will start with a full-time career. Is something that we all need to be prepared for. So anyway, I took on, because of my HR qualification, took on a sector that I was not very much aware of, but engineering and manufacturing HR generalist roles. And I very quickly realized that I wasn't cut out for typical administrative HR. And that is my first lesson, right? Find your journey and find your strength. If there's something that doesn't work for you and doesn't interest, then shift quickly, or as we call with agility. So recruiting and talent acquisition was the most exciting area for me. I saw it making direct impact to business and business performance, and I was very intrigued by the consulting world. So executive search consulting is where I started with Boyden, who are pioneers, an American search consulting firm, and they were starting or setting up shop in India with in Bangalore. So there I was in the Silicon Valley of India, technology, and of course doing a lot of work around executive search consulting. But this was also sales. This was also P&L management of your own desk and practice, and that gave me a lot of experience. And I think the second theme is broaden your area of specialization. Looks like Prof. Madhavi, you wanted to say something.
Please,
Okay.
please continue.
Sure. So going forward, taking executive search strength, I found myself in a dilemma. My husband had an opportunity to move to Singapore with a job that he was very excited about, and I was just enjoying the career. So we pulled ourselves out and moved to Singapore. As a young mother as well. And the first thing I was told was that your degree will not be recognized in Singapore. No one really as a trailing spouse has been able to find jobs. And as you can imagine, I wasn't ready to give up. I think that comes from living in Lucknow. I don't know how I can pull out a theme from there, but we do become very, very resilient. And the thing I decided to do was to actually shift. They say if you want to learn about a country or a society, work with its youth. And interestingly, National University of Singapore, which is a top university, and of course the National University for Singapore was looking for industry practitioners to come in and join them as full-time faculty in their business school. And I was fortunate enough to get that responsibility. So I think the first myth was busted. People will tell you that your degrees are not valuable, but it is not so. And if a university could hire me as an educator for HR, it proved many naysayers wrong. Anyway, I really enjoyed the stints teaching HR and organization behavior. And the kind of passion I felt for education, I decided to keep on going with it, even in my corporate career, as you will see later, when I took on coaching. Sorry, looks like someone is unmuted. So if you could please mute yourself. And then, moving on, I went back to consulting. I realized that academia was not my thing. I actually did embark on a PhD and exited with a master's, keeping the options open. But I came back to corporate, did consulting with very large consulting firms in the HR consulting firm space, both Kelly Services, and then the career grew, and I was getting more and more P&L roles in consulting, which is where you manage a practice, and it becomes less and less about HR and becomes more and more about just running P&L, managing people as a general manager day in and day out. That was Morgan McKinley. Interestingly, I started thinking about where do these people land, right? Who we are, the products and our services, how are actually corporates taking them, and what is the response, and what impact does it make to their performance? And HP offered, they were setting up executive recruiting like a talent consulting practice within, and it was a global practice. So we actually don't report into HR locally. I report into someone who is the global lead for talent. And I joined HP, and within a week, HP announced that they were going to sell off their PC division. This is the large HP, not Hewlett Packard Enterprise. And you can imagine there has never been a dull moment in these 8, 9 years that I have been there. We've had lots of transformation, change. 3 companies, 4 companies came out of where we started with, and of course, we continue to. And I'm very proud to say that HR as a function has led transformation for HP. Forbes covered it. Many management journals have talked about it, and that does show in the culture of the people, and in the tenure of people, right? It's not surprising to find people staying there for 25 years, which is like our entire career. But anyhow, I think, I am with my different roles. I am now running executive recruitment and talent transformation, and I will say more and more transformation is part of it, part of the journey than recruitment. We're doing a lot of work. I go back to dip into education to coach internally. So I am a certified coach, both in Marshall Goldsmith as well as Korn Ferry. And I also have gone back to the community to mentor and coach. So we set up a women's lead in circle here. A lot of women are wanting to come back to industry in Singapore. And so I started something called We at Red Dot. That's Women Empowered at Red Dot. That continues to be my passion. And then I also mentor via HPE some startups. But having said that, I think when I got back in touch with my batchmates, and but particularly with Ajay and this group, I was more than excited with an opportunity to come and speak with Lumba undergrads, people who are in the same space as I was 25 years ago. And I wanted to say just one last thing from my career is find your themes. Your career is going to be about its anchors. And I think for me, the anchor was people. Whenever there was change, whenever I had to balance my work life, whenever I had to look at the community, it has always been about people, and it continues to be exciting. There's never a dull moment, and I'm hoping for that going forward in the career. So I won't bore you too much more with my career. If you have, if there are people in HR, if there are people looking at marketing or sales or any other specialization and who are interested and have questions about my career, definitely reach out. I think there will be details provided, so I'll be happy to talk to you or address any of your questions. Moving on, and I think there's space for questions later, so I will go to the next piece, which I think you're all thinking about, VUCA. And I don't know, I haven't seen many responses in chat, so I'm assuming that VUCA is a new acronym for you, but VUCA was actually first introduced in '87 in the post-Cold World War era by the military, when they talked about the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. And it has been increasingly applied to strategic thinking and crisis management across industries, including education. This is probably 2020 is the most opportune time to talk about VUCA, where undeniably the pandemic and its impact has turned the world on its head. And we are seeing all the 4 characteristics of the VUCA world, right? I mean, I won't talk about the unpredictability that you see, the fast change, the uncertainty of when a cure or vaccination will be found, the complexity, right? How much it is affecting all aspects of life, whether it's healthcare or business or your economy and your personal and social life, right? I mean, we are just living remotely a lot right now. I know that Lucknow is in a 3-day lockdown as part of UP lockdown. So, the ambiguity is huge. There is no best practice that we know of for organizations, for states, for governments, for individuals to follow. And I will not bore you too much about the challenges, but I definitely wanted to share with you what the new normal is going to look like, or has started to look like. And in fact, it was looking like this even from the past 5 years because of the increasing digital transformation and globalization. But in a way, globalization is going to turn back, and people will be looking inwards a lot. But here are some of the trends that you can, you can find, and they are fairly common. Again, I would not go one by one because there's a lot of crises that we talk about. Global economy, every country except Greater China is predicting worsening economies at this point. India's GDP has shrunk, and World Bank projection is also a shrinkage for India. Unemployment rate, again, not good news. It has become better since mid-May, and 50% execs in India. This is according to a McKinsey report. They are seeing that there is a moderately or substantially better economic situation. But this is going to be gradual, and we are preparing for a very, very slow reset. So VUCA remains, and the new normal remains. What does this mean for you? Anything and everything can be disrupted. This call can be disrupted, the Zoom call, and security is really, really important. Disruption, if I talk about, I think the biggest example is public transport, particularly in economies where you see a lot more public transport, but even in India, you saw the advent of Uber and Ola, and now they are getting disrupted because people do not want to use that kind of transport. They want to be safe. And, we're probably waiting for that next wave of disruption to happen. Education and work, they are remote. And even in future, you might see a hybrid model. Harvard was big news of going all remote. I'm sure your university has been remote. Mode of assessments are changing. So we're living with that. And work-wise, yes, everybody is remote. There is no business travel. We're doing a lot of work virtually ourselves. What is the corporate world doing? They need to be looking at new business models and reshaping of business portfolios. I want to share a fact with you, right? This is again from the McKinsey report. India's 1.1 trillion of invested capital over the last decade, the lion's share, 84%, was concentrated in 3 value-losing sectors, right? Energy and materials, domestic services, and financial services. And value-losing sectors where returns on invested capital are lower than weighted average cost of capital. While only 16% of invested capital went into value-creating sectors. And your guess is as good as mine. These are the knowledge-intensive sectors like IT and pharmaceuticals, medical products, and then, of course, consumer goods and services and capital goods. So, those businesses which will survive and succeed are shifting to those. Reliance is a huge example. Every day as we talk about, they're changing. Jio is a big example. They are, you have Jio Meet, even if it looks so much like Zoom Meet, they are going to be very successful because everyone in India will look inward and will use it. Of course, I don't even want to talk how much success has Amazon seen because of this change in model, both on the e-commerce side and on the IT side with cloud. Your life is all about going to be a lot about online shopping. And when we are shopping that way and we're changing the way we work that way, we need to be thinking about our careers also very, very differently. It cannot be the same career that was the traditional career, right? 25 years ago or 5 years ago even. One of the things that we should be thinking about is the embracement of advanced technologies. Whether you do it as as a degree or as something, but definitely look at these sectors and use it in your function. Do not go for a sector or a function that has a potential to be disrupted by AI or machine learning. And I think, management careers, you are in a good place with an MBA because these are the professions which can't be replaced by machines. But having said that, we need to be looking at the fact that you need to be looking at capabilities of future, right? Don't think of resumes, think of portfolios. How do you get into the truth of the gig economy and, accumulate gigs and move and shift when need to, right? When I needed, I had to get into doing sales and business development for my consulting roles. And I think that's where you probably need to think about what you need to do to build this. Be aware of diverse workforce and inclusive ways of working are going to be very, very important. If you're going to get into a management career, you have to be open to differences and open to a different voice. It doesn't have to be a different gender or a race or a religion or a culture, but it is also the difference of ideas. And it has direct impact on firm performance. You will see every global organization and individual organizations in India looking at it. And then finally, your work life is going to be integrated. You are going to move between the boundaries very seamlessly. And so there is the challenge of distraction and procrastination with the whole social media and information around you, particularly at this time, and all the confusion prevails. So with these trends, I see some people raising hands, but could I request you to get to your questions when there is time for questions? I just have this one last slide to talk about and share with you, which is VUCA model, right? I mean, Harvard has published on it in 2014, and I have drawn this very, uncertain picture. But having said that, there is a whole concept of reframing and rethinking, and that has been done and tried. I've attended, for education sector, for example, where they are doing this with universities, is how do you address, but this is equally applicable to your own situations. How do you address the volatility in the current world? And that is through vision and values. I'll first talk about values because it appeals to individuals. Values are not really, right, the ethics side of things. Values here in management literature and research are about your long-term personal goals. What do you value? Do you value stability? Do you value creativity? Or do you value money or fame? And based on those long-term values that you persevere, draw up a vision for yourself. That is not necessarily, it is going to anchor your career, your work, the choices that you make. So, and be resilient for your values. While your vision may change, I think your values might change briefly, but they will remain. In fact, we do this assessment of leadership potential, and I coach on that, and Korn Ferry has done a lot of research. The people who have a higher perseverance towards values have a much higher potential to get to leadership. And that's been researched and put into practice. Moving on, the U side, uncertainty can be addressed with understanding. Understand the strategy of your economy, of your corporate, of your role, and of course, of your personal strategy to address the uncertainty in the world. Look at systems thinking. When we think about the choices we make and how we address uncertainty, it should be a lot about looking at the interconnectedness of things. And I think systems thinking is not a new theory for you, a new phenomenon, but I'll leave you to that. Think about understanding to address uncertainty. Complexity is best addressed through clarity. I think a lot of people, and there is just so much complexity, and we like to share many complex phenomena. I mean, I'm at the risk of being very complex with VUCA, and I'm trying to simplify this for you, but those who are able to simplify and those who are able to inform or take informed decisions, problem solving, can address complexity. They can resolve complexity. In fact, recently, one of the directors, or in fact, one of the external talent who later became in as a director, but got the fastest promotion into a VP role in HPE, and she had experience of just managing 200 million size consumer technology business, and we were looking at her to manage a 1 billion size enterprise technology business. And I said, why should we hire you? Why do you think you're ready for the role? And she said, Ambika, because I break down the complexity of 1 billion size business. I get in experts. I don't solve everything, and experts don't make anything simple. So experts give the solutions and the creativity, but I am able to break it down, and that is what matters to the customers. That is what matters to our engineering teams, and that definitely matters to our sales teams. And no guesses, she was hired, and she is, one of the youngest VPs in the business, and then relocated to Americas. So the clarity to address complexity is very important. And I think the last piece, which is ambiguity and how you address it through the characteristic of agility, is probably the key takeaway that I want to leave you with. Agility is a newer construct in psychology, but it is being used as a really important construct for characteristics for success. And agility is all about speed, nimbleness, how quick any organization, any individual who's agile, but particularly for us and for you, I think I would address learning agility. Learning agility is not your capacity to learn. Learning agility is more about, I mean, of course it is capacity to learn, but it is more about your curiosity, your intellectual interest in things which are new and ambiguous. And again, going back to the assessment of leadership, learning agility, people agility, results agility, and change agility are seen as one of the key determinants of your leadership potential, and obviously of success in career, of growth in career. So all these lead to a very well-known construct, which we talk about, which is self-awareness. And I would say there is a very, very well-known quote which says, bring your best selves to your life. So explore your broad selves. Do not decide, do not think what your peer is doing or what is the hottest career going around, but look at a wider range of the selves that you can be, and all of us are different selves. But stand out, find your uniqueness, definitely stand out, and bring your best selves to school, to Lumba, to work, and your life. With that, I would like to pass it over to Ajay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ambika, for coming up with so many of these new areas and especially telling the students as to they should be more with themselves rather than just thinking about
Not at all. My pleasure.
what the environment says. With this specific session to Nandakumar. Before I hand it over to you, Nandakumar, let me introduce to all of you who he is. You've already gone through the small CV which is there on the pullout which you have received. But he was one of those people in the batch who came up with a number of magazines. He came up with construction of new clubs. So the finance club, the marketing club. So he was instrumental in that. Other than that, he was also coming up with quizzes. So I remember he created quizzes on his own, and that is where he was. And we used to get some chocolates. I don't know where he financed them from, but he was one of those people who was instrumental in that. His creativity is what you can see even today. Just behind him is a backdrop that he has prepared. So he is the person behind the whole of the brochure, behind the whole of the backdrop. He gave it to us also, but I was not able to come up with it because of my back bookshelf. So it doesn't come up. But he is the one who's always been creative, and I think he's in the right area of information technology. So next 8 to 10 minutes for you, Nandu. Nand Kumar is his name. Nandu is what we call him. So that is what I am calling him. Please, Nandu Kumar, go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Vijay. Thanks for those kind instructions. I don't know whether I gave away chocolates like that.
Please be a bit more close to the mic. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, thanks. First of all, thank you, everybody, and thanks specifically to Mr. Medhavi and J.K. Sharma, whom I know, of course. And Medhavi, sir, if you remember the first computer lab and the first program in Foxborough, when we started, the IT department started that year, if I'm not wrong. And I took a very strange combination called marketing systems, and even I was a bit confused as how it takes so totally two diverse topics as my subject of specialization. But I think that was the time when I started getting interested in tech, and I belong to a generation which I call the sandwich generation. So during our generation, we used to stand in queues in front of banks to buy a railway ticket. We still had to go to a station. We still had, no phones. We don't have mobile phones. And from there on to where we are today, the way we are talking, I think technology pretty much infiltrated every part of our life. So my career started very differently. Well, in a way, I didn't have a campus placement. No, I didn't get one. And I moved to down south because my father was transferred down south very early. So I moved there and I got my first break of Escorts for incidentally setting up their Yamaha brand down south. And they also won the licenses for introducing cell phones in India. And that was my first exposure to technology in that sense, because I was doing for 6 months setting up the bike brand, and the rest of 6 months I moved to the telecom division to kind of set up the cell phone network or dealer network or consumer network, as we call today, for them. And the funniest part was we also used to have something called pagers. I don't even know that you guys know the instrument called a pager. This was the size, and you have to call a number. A message will come on the pager, and then you again call back another number, and then they will pass on the message to the person on the other side. So from there to mobile phones to smartphones. So from the day we didn't even have exposure to computers at our home, to still having, I don't know, 10 devices in each home nowadays, 3 mobile phones, 4 laptops, and all the tablets and all that stuff. I think our generation has seen it all. And you guys, the class of 21, 22 are going the lucky ones. You got everything sorted out. But we have to struggle with everything new. We have to try out. Everything was tried out on us, let me put it that way. Any e-commerce or use of tablets, use of phones for work. Everything was tried out on us. But you guys have everything sorted out. Just kidding. I think you have a long way to go. You still have some new technologies coming up for you also. So tech exposure came very, very early in my career, and luckily, enterprise and outsourcing boom started in India. Again, I happened to be in Bangalore at that time, Bangalore and Chennai, shuttling between the 2 locations, and the outsourcing boom caught on, and I was hired by Wipro, and from there on, it's been tech all the way for the last almost, I would say, 20 years. The first 5 years were in sales. The remaining 20 years have primarily been on tech, on different roles, right from consulting to management. So now I'm doing a kind of a quasi-sales role because I'm advising customers on new technologies like augmented reality, virtual reality, Internet of Things, analytics, AI, ML, things like that. And of course, as I said, happened to be the right place at the right time and rode the wave, you can say so. And today you see technology pretty much everywhere. And to you, all I can say is that don't put yourself in a slot and don't expect the kind of organizations you expect to study in your class. I think, in fact, I'm not even qualified to advise you what kind of organization you face, because I see that happening right in front of me in my own company. The days of hierarchy of a pyramid structure are gone. Today, organizations look at networks, look at communication, and look at collaboration. So, from a company which had around 11 levels, boss today has hardly, I think, 4 or 5 levels in the executive cadre. And and the distance between me and the president is just 1 level. So it's come down to that. And people and earlier you saw an organization where your role was determined by the asymmetric information you carried. Obviously, your boss knew more than you, and his boss knew more than him, and the president, of course, knew more than anybody else. That was the way the company was structured. But today, I can confidently say my boss does not know more than me because we are living in a knowledge economy. He has the courage and the humbleness to come and ask me, hey, look, I don't know about this. Can you advise me? And that's the way it's going to happen going forward. You're not going to work in a structural organization, which typically you are accustomed to listen to or see. You are going to work in a very, very fragmented organization. The gig work workers which Ambika was talking about. You may not even see some of your colleagues in person for maybe months or years. You may talk to somebody somewhere in Canada, US, Malaysia, Singapore, get work done out of them. So the structure and the methodology of the organization is going to completely change. They're going to completely change now. So you are going to be the first generation who's going to see it happening right in front of you. I think that's something which I can clearly see. The second thing I can clearly see is that you guys are going to be the first generation who are going to be tech native. I would say so. You are born with technology and you continue to evolve with technology. We learned it. We had somebody at the teachers and we learned it by struggle, failing multiple times and getting up. But you guys are almost literally born with smartphones, mobiles and tablets like so you guys are going to work with technology in every function. So you don't have to, as Ambika was mentioning that choose a function which is more technology focused. Don't worry, every function is going to be impacted by technology, right from farming all the way up to of course flying rockets to the moon. So but what you need to be aware of is that you don't have to be afraid of technology. Just embrace it. It comes part and parcel of your job nowadays. So you don't have to worry. There are enough people to help you, advise you, and you don't have to be like master in a specific. Of course, you are very tech oriented. You love a particular kind of application development or coding or enterprise. Of course, getting to that, but you are going to be enabled with technology anyway. So just embrace it. Work with it, and luckily, I live in a place called Bangalore, which is like as Ambika was mentioning, the Silicon Valley of India. And I see so many young guys doing some amazing things with technology. I mean, no wonder it's the third biggest startup ecosystem in the world after, I think, Atlanta, San Francisco and Seattle, I think. And people are not scared. So don't get scared. So people have left their jobs. I know of people who have left Bosch, gone out and started something on their own. I know of IMD graduates coming out, starting on their own. I know even a biology student coming out and starting on their own. So that those labels don't get attached to labels and designations and roles. People are doing some amazing amount of stuff, out of places like Bangalore, Hyderabad, Gurgaon, Chennai. So be prepared for that too. And the kind of facilitation, the kind of the support system, ecosystem you have today, I mean, unbelievable. There are people ready to fund you for ideas. There are people ready to help you in your thoughts. We have meetups in Bangalore where there are meetups for AI, there are meetups for ML, there are meetups for augmented reality. People just assemble in the park, talk about and form a company and go back. And we have co-working spaces now. So employment need not be the only only avenue you look at when you get out of college. You have a lot more opportunities, a lot more areas to explore. I'm talking in spite of COVID today. In fact, I know 3 or 4 of my friends who have left jobs very recently in the COVID scenario and gone out and started companies. They said it's the best time to start a company. I want to experiment now. When the market rises, I know I'm ready. So people are taking such risks. So all I will say is, and the location, I mean, Ambika talked about Lucknow. That's gone now. I mean, when we were there, of course, Lucknow was like, oh, it's some place in UP. That's all I knew. I was a South Indian. I pretty much any knowledge of Lucknow, to be honest. And they landed there to where we are today. Distances have vanished. So you can work out of anywhere, live anywhere. Just for example, Zoho. Zoho is one of the largest CRM companies. It's an Indian company developed out of Chennai. The founder is called Sridhar Vembu. He is my, I wouldn't say friend, my acquaintance. He runs a company out of a place called Sivakasi, which is primarily famous for firecrackers, right? But he said, no, I'm not going to leave the city. I'm going to run it out of Sivakasi, it's a small town. So he hires graduates and trains them from the nearby engineering colleges and runs a $1 billion outfit. And he says he'll continue to do that. Go and check out the company called MacApp Studio, started by 2 young graduates who are unemployed. Decided they would develop a software for Apple. Spent around 3 months, some 50,000 savings. Apple liked it. Then they continued to develop, and today they are again multi-millionaires in Chennai. Look out for a company called Crash Boom Bang. The name sounds funny, but they are the first defense startup recognized by the government of India. They make you don't have to worry about, of course, you have to worry about placements, like a standard corporate X 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of job. Yeah, go for it. But I'm saying don't restrict yourself to such notions, labels, or slots. Find your own slot. Go and grab opportunities. I'm telling you, some of the most exciting times are well ahead of you. I don't want to say anything, Ajay, now. Maybe we'll take it up questions later. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Nandu. So with Ambika coming up with the VUCA world, I think Nand Kumar gives us the way how to drive through this VUCA world. But I would say he is actually the person whom you all should be tracking, because he is telling us about a number of ways, especially in this VUCA world, how to come out with it. But now let me hand over the baton to Manjula. So Manjula has been strongly with the marketing group when we were there at the department, and she had also been doing a number of activities at that time. I remember it very well. She has been one of the very important pillars in the building of one of the latest universities in the country, that is the Ashoka University. So she has been contributing a lot as a consultant and has been working very strongly with that. But today, what she is going to come up with is some media explosion and entrepreneurship, which she equates in the following form. And she says, choices are equal to complexity and opportunity. So I think, so first one was Ambika, second one was Nand Kumar. She's trying to unfold how we can go ahead with the complexity and opportunity shape up. So I'll help her with the presentation. It is all yours, Manjula. Next 15 minutes. Manjula, just unmute yourself first. Unmute Alt A. Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you, Ajay. First, my greetings to my teachers, Professor Sharma, Professor Medhavi. My greetings to all the teachers at Lumba today. My greetings to all the students. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving us time to talk about our journey at work and life ever since we left Lumba. It's quite amazing to be here. I'm hoping that today marks the beginning of what will be a longer association that we have as alumni with the institute. Helping with our experience, the current students, the batches to come, if we can add value in any way at all, we would be very, very happy. That's our way of giving back to the institute that actually built us up. So this is actually an expression of gratitude. It's a great time to be talking to all of you because we have captive attention. The city is on lockdown. We in our respective places have time on hand, fortunately, to be able to talk to you today, and that's where things stand. So I'll just start. I'll request Ajay to put up the screen if he can, and I'll.
Yeah, can you see it?
Yes, I can. Could you please do the full screen option? Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. So the intention with this presentation essentially was to actually walk all of you through our personal journeys, and from our journeys share some learnings and talk about what could you be expecting. Yeah, so 25 years is a lot of time, but some parts of the journey don't change. And this is the first slide is actually my journey. The circles are marked by the size of the circles. Essentially is telling you the time that I've spent at various organizations. I specialized in marketing. I started in advertising, which used to be a passion. So being in the creative field, working in advertising was something that was a life stream. I got out of Lumba. I went looking for work on my own. I didn't have campus placement, but I landed at Rediffusion DY&R, where I first worked for 6 months in planning and then in client servicing. That first year was very, it sort of set the tone for things, basically. Advertising then used to be a very rocking career. Lots of learning, lots of exposure, lots of hard work. We would be working long hours, doing lots of interesting stuff on brands that were sort of budding brands, learning to find their wings. And so it's in a manner of speaking, one was growing up with the brands that one was working with. And this incidentally was also the year that mobile phones were launched. First, Nandu spoke about it. First, there was Casio, the pager, and then there was Airtel, the mobile service, the first mobile service, Motorola, the phone. I happened to be working in an agency which actually launched both Casio, the pager, with Aishwarya Rai, the then Miss Universe. And they also launched Airtel mobile services, 16 minutes and minute, 16 rupees a minute for calling and 8 rupees a minute for receiving calls. So from that point in time to today, when we can sit across the globe anywhere and have these Zoom conferences free of cost, is an amazing journey to have traversed. So the next circle that you see was a slightly larger circle, which was me at Mudra. Mudra was a lot of learning, training, and growing for me, because I moved from account management to media planning. It sort of aligned very well with my undergraduate degree, which was mathematics and statistics. And I realized that I wanted to do work where a lot of strategic thinking was involved. Calculations were involved, numbers were involved. I used to enjoy that. And therefore, keeping personal passion, personal interest in mind, working in media planning within advertising was more interesting for me than doing account executive's job, where, you know, as client servicing, right at the beginning, you're actually just acting as a courier between agency and the client. My next speaker, Gaurav, has been a client at the early stages of his career when I was an executive at Mudra. He will probably share the other side of the story. But yeah, so media planning, 4 years at Mudra, spent time launching Samsung TVs in the country. I spent time launching Frito-Lay's products. There was Nestle, Cerelac, and Polo. There was Dabur, Lal Dant Manjan. So various categories, different kind of learning across categories. And that's how the journey went. From planning in mainstream media, I actually shifted in the year 2000 to online advertising. The first internet advertising agency in the country was MediaTurf Worldwide. I was the first employee in Delhi, and I set up their office in Delhi. So the interesting thing about my career from this point onwards was that in some way or the other, I have been sort of connected with startups. MediaTurf was the first startup I worked with. Fortunately, unfortunately, I spent 1 year, then for personal reasons, I quit. I took a little break. And during this break, I worked on gigs with places like Dainik Bhaskar. From the little break that I had taken, I got an opportunity to work with Times of India. When I started working with Times of India, it actually took off from what my expertise was, which is media planning, strategic media thinking, to apply it on the other side, which is the media side of things. And there, the idea was to work on product pricing, to work on how helping the sales teams understand how media planners think so that they could do better sales, and so on and so forth. But within 6 months of having joined, something dramatic came on in Times of India, and I was lucky enough to be at the right place at the right time. I'll talk about that in a future slide. But then from Times of India, after 11 years at Times of India, being the youngest general manager at Times. So as a woman, I was the youngest general manager that Times appointed. So having worked like that, then I moved from there into my own beast. I took a break in 2014. I decided to do a couple of things, one of which was focus on entrepreneurship for myself. The second was focus on building social entrepreneurship. The third was getting attuned to this new norm of working. Ambika mentioned it in passing, and I think Nandu may have also mentioned it. The gig economy is here. It has been here for the last at least 5 years that I've been watching it. Now, suddenly COVID and its consequence is that businesses would be working far more with expertise in such a way that they plug and unplug. So it's a great advantage for the business. It's a great advantage for the individual. Yeah. So how it works is I can solve a problem for, say, business A. I get in, I spend 6 months, solve the issue, and I'm out. The business does not incur the cost of having me as an employee on board with all my entailing costs. I'm not bound to the organization, and I'm free to do my own stuff in my time. And we both work efficiently because time is limited and I do have to solve a very specific problem. Goals are defined. Which is what appeals to me as a gig worker. So I'm doing these independent gigs. What Ajay mentioned about Ashoka University, I'd like to correct that a little bit. I've had the good fortune to work with Dr. Pramat Sinha. Dr. Pramat Sinha is the gentleman who first founded ISB Hyderabad, and then he founded Ashoka University, amongst other institutes that he set up. He sort of set a benchmark which is to be looked up to for this country as far as institutes of higher learning are concerned. I worked with him to set up a new institute in Bombay, and I worked on the business plan for that institute. So that's really broadly the journey that I've had. The screen that you see right now is basically talking about the universe of media, advertising, and communication. I wanted to put this up to sort of set a context on how any of you looking at marketing, any of you looking at advertising per se as a career, or looking at digital media, digital marketing, or the media side of things will have to approach it. So on the left-hand side, you have the bigger universe of things which is go-to-market for any business. So Nandu at Bosch, or Ambika at HP, or Gaurav with all the businesses that he's been helping with. We are all working in some business context. So any business will have to figure out how do they want to go to market. So the go to market becomes the larger sort of context of how things are to be done. Within the go to market is the marketing plan that they built. And within the marketing is the communication. So when I started with communication, which is advertising. I am currently helping businesses on their marketing and their go-to-market strategies. All of this hasn't changed. This remains. You know, any business, an HUL or a Colgate-Palmolive or an ITC or a startup, all of them have to plan what is their go-to-market strategy, what is the marketing outcome to support that, and how are they building their communication. And so there are communication solution providers, the advertising agencies and such like, who are helping them do it. So this remains. On the other side is media. Ajay, if you'll move on to the next slide.
Yeah, just say change and I'll do it for you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry, so previous slide.
This is it?
Yes, please, thanks.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So, when we started in 1995, I thought the world was very complex. I was part of something that was huge. So within communication, there, we needed to make plans for TV, for print, for radio, for outdoors, and we had to work on each media individually. One part was planning, the second part was dealing with all the people who'd come in. Because one was doing planning and buying, there was this 10 different channels that had exploded. There were at least the 10 big media houses, print media houses who would come. There were radio channels that were there. There were cinema guys. There were outdoor guys. And interestingly, that from 1995, now we can go to the next slide, Ajay. This is what has happened. So this is the explosion I was talking about that Ajay introduced all of you to. Today, the left remains as is. There is need to go to market. There is a marketing plan. There is communication to be done. However, that communication has become complex to the power of n, because there are digital platforms, there's e-com, there's social media, there are content platforms, there are influencers, there's mobile that has exploded, and therefore from only English largely for premium customers to all languages to on the mobile screen. And then of course the traditional media remains. So that is how the world has changed. we can go on to the next slide. I'll take a second here to stay on this slide. We can move to the next slide, Ajay. I want to focus on the Times of India part of the journey, and I'm going to talk about why I want to do that.
Is
so,
okay?
Yeah, thanks. So we'll park that complexity of media slide for a second, and I'm just going to talk about right now on what I did in Times of India. In 2003, July, I had joined them. In 2003 end, 2004 beginning actually, Mr. Sameer Jain, who's the promoter of Times of India, who you will never hear about or see pictures of in media. He remains behind the scenes. But he's the biggest maverick I have come across, the biggest ideator, the biggest genius you can look at as marketing goes. So he came up with this idea of we as Times of India need to grow and to grow, we cannot take market share from other media because we are already the largest. We will only grow little by little if we take share from other media. There is a lesson in here for all of you, but I'll come to that later. So what he said was, let's grow the pie. How do we grow the pie? Let's get more and more people to advertise. Let more and more businesses advertise. Let's get businesses who do not advertise or businesses who advertise lesser to advertise more. So he said, let's take equity in businesses, give them advertising. So that idea sounded extremely bizarre to all of us who heard it. And we said, why will people give us equity for advertising? But the fact of the matter is, to cut a long story short, I did that with that team for 10 years. In that 10 years, that business was worth 7,500 crores. There were 200 of us managing it. And the kind of learnings we had, therefore, were tremendous, because we actually built a product from scratch. So here we went to each and every entrepreneur across the country, whether it was the size of Future Group or DLF or big real estate names, or it was businesses like Videocon, and then there was India Mart, and then there was smaller businesses, then there were startups. So various sizes and scales of businesses. Each one of them we went to, we pitched this idea, we actually convinced them that we could give them advertising that would build their business and they could grow exponentially, shorten the time cycle of their business, and we wanted them to advertise more and more with us. So it happened, we managed to do it. The interesting thing was, somebody who had not opted to do finance, somebody who had not wanted to do anything but communication and marketing, I actually saw the magic of how marketing delivers to building of a business. So that for me was a tremendous journey. There are numbers here of how we did it. There are 3 business pitches that were made to the investment committee every week. There were 10 years or 50 weeks of doing that. We had some, some 150,000 different business owners we would have met. Not me individually, but we as a team. So I must have done, say, at least 1/5 of that, if nothing else. So the point is, in this journey, we learned more about how businesses work, how businesses grow, what are aspirations of business promoters, how can we help the business, how should a business outlook be, how should individual outlook be, how should leadership outlook be, and that to me was invaluable. It also seeded for me a taste for entrepreneurship. Ajay, we can go to the next slide.
Okay. And in the meantime, I would say that the students who are there, if you want to ask some questions, you can just put them on the chat box, because all the speakers, they are going ahead with answers to your questions. You can continue. Please, Manjula.
Thanks. So people, I took a break from Times of India after 11 years of doing that, because A, it was really intense. 2, it had, after a point, begun to be more and more of the same thing. So if there is no new learning, there is no growth, there is no point in doing something, is how I see life. And I have moved on from there into social entrepreneurship. which essentially means we look at business ideas which are which may be which are helping solve problems at the bottom of the pyramid, which are also self-sustaining businesses and are not philanthropy. And that is one of the core things that we do. I'm parking it here simply because as one of the outcomes of this interaction, we want all of you, any of you who are looking at entrepreneurship and have some idea, maybe you can discuss it with us and we can sort of help you shape it into something more concrete. I run Diametric Ideas with my husband. We incubate businesses, and I also do gigs. From here, we can move on to the next slide. So these are some of the learnings. These are broader learnings than getting into the specifics of what times are like and what is going to happen in the VUCA world post-COVID. This is to say technical skills matter, but attitudes matter more. Job skills matter. Richness of life journey matters more. Ideas matter, but perseverance matters more. Battles matter, the war matters more, perfection matters, but execution matters most. So if you have a thought, if you have an idea, if there is something that you want to pursue, pursue it with diligence, keep going forward one step at a time, and you will definitely be able to achieve results that you're looking for. I want to go to the next slide, please. So this is coming back to this once again for a second, and we can go to the next slide. The purpose of showing that slide again was that as far as your careers are concerned, and your careers in marketing, in communication, in advertising, in media, you will be able to make of your life what you want to make it by combining ambition, technical skill, management, leadership, and availability in your own unique combination. So each one of you, your ambition defines where you want to go. Your technical skills that you picked up at school and undergrad and now at Management Institute are going to help you. There is need for constant reinvention of yourself in the world going forward because technology is in constant flux. Things change at a speed faster than they ever have. What used to change in 5 years or 10 years today is changing in 6 months' time. So you need to keep up with technology in spite of the fact that you're not technology specialists. Learning management skills that you've learned today and applying them. Learning leadership is partially learned, partially intrinsic. Identifying your own leadership style, applying it in life, being available where opportunities come, all of these together will give you an infinite number of permutations. So there are endless possibilities. The point we would want to make as a team of people who have been where you are today is that take help, ask us for help if we can help you in any way at all, and walk your journey. There is nothing to be scared of in even the COVID scenario. There are businesses that are coming as a result of how we are living life today. Yes, of course, life is going to change, but the possibilities remain. So that's the note that I'd want to leave you people with. The last slide, Ajay. This is my offer to you. Any questions, any guidance, anything that you want to talk to me about, my email ID is there. Questions even right now, please go ahead and ask. That's all. Thank you so much. And so pass it back to Ajay.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Manjula. I think now you are actually having many options, the students. And yes, we are inviting you all for the questions, although we'll also have a small question and answer session whereby the street questions can also be answered. But in the meantime, be ready with your questions so that these people can actually address your areas of how to go ahead while you are driving through your journey to getting a job and establishing yourself with a good career. With that, let me bring you on to the last but not the least is how we say it. A speaker of this specific session, he is Gaurav Lavania. Now, Gaurav Lavania, all what he says is written over there, but I can tell you a few more things about him. He is a person who tries to meet the hit. He would try to go and find where there could be more challenges. And he has moved to different continents. I think he is now traversed nearly through the whole of the world. Presently, he is working with an organization in Canada, and he is, but in India, as you know, it is COVID time, so he is in Lucknow itself as of now. But on the other hand, he is working continuously for that organization, which is there in Canada. That organization itself works for a number of other countries, so he has a wide exposure on a continuous basis. His interest is in telling all of us is about self-motivated careers. So you heard about what an HR is, what an IT is, what marketing is, but now how you can self-motivate yourself for different careers. What are the options which are there? So let me hand it over to you, Gaurav. Can I?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you can hear me well.
For sure. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. So, first of all, my greetings to Professor Medhavi and Dr. Sharma. I don't know if you would remember us, but definitely we do. And thank you, Ajay, and greetings to Manjula and Ambika and Nandakumar. And of course, a very big hello to all the young friends who are attending this webinar. It is indeed a pleasure to be here with you all. And thank you for sparing some of your valuable time to be here for this webinar. As Ajay, as what you've suggested, and the format that we have today, I'll just take a short summary of my professional path during these last 25 years. As with all of you who will be graduating soon and the ones who will graduate next year, I graduated in 1995 and I moved to Delhi, and my first job was as a brand executive with the India Today group, managing a bouquet of brands like Business Today and Cosmopolitan magazine, if you've heard of, and the Times International News magazine. So for somebody from doing your MBA in Lumba in 95, and having been born and brought up in Lucknow, I moved to Delhi. I really didn't have a thought that I would get into brand management as my first ever job. I was always under the impression that I would need to do some sales or something to that effect before I can get into brand management. But as you've seen with my previous fellow speakers have said, the opportunities are boundless, and if you can keep trying and you work on it, it works out for everyone. So I moved into brand management, worked in the media industry. India Today at that point in time, even now it is one of the biggest media houses. And as a brand manager, I was exposed to all sides of the brand, whether it was finance or marketing or event management and public relations. And again, being in the media, we met the best creme de la creme of Indian society. And so we kind of worked in a way that I would not have expected at the time when I was passing out from MBA. So that was something which helped me a lot in moving on from media into the FMCG industry. I moved in the FMCG industry only because I felt that being in the media would kind of keep me focused in one aspect of the industry, and FMCG was, at least at that point in time, was what IT is today. Everyone wanted to be in the FMCG industry, in the marketing department, so to say. So I thought, well, let's try it. And as luck would have it, I worked with some very large companies and handled very decent brands, companies like Dabur and Dunkin's and Marico. And from there on, if I may bring in the points that Ajay raised, being in the brand team, I was handling all India businesses, and I was traveling all across the country from all regions and all states. I probably, after working for like 8 years in marketing, I don't remember any state that I did not travel to in India. And that is when I realized that my real passion is travel. And then I thought, well, I've done India, and why not move and see other parts of the world? And then, as luck would have it, while I was working with Marico, I got an offer to move internationally. And at that point in time, back in 2002,
we would not have thought of. I wouldn't have imagined it. When I would talk international, I would probably have imagined going to the Middle East or Dubai or US or Canada, where I'm now. But I got an offer to move to Africa. And even within Africa, where it was Ghana or Nigeria or South Africa, maybe Kenya that people would have heard of, I got an opportunity to move as a country manager to work in Guinea, which is a country in Western Africa. It was a country nobody had probably heard of. My father had to look at the map of Africa to find exactly where it is. And well, I landed there. I took the offer and I landed there in Africa, Guinea. And frankly, it was a paradigm shift for me. At that point in time, I did not realize what it was. But having to move to a different country and moving from a brand management or a marketing manager profile to suddenly becoming the managing director of a company. And when I became the managing director, prior to that, I had no experience of handling other departments. And I landed handling a company the first day on the job in Guinea. I was told that the company turnover is about, in Indian rupees, about 100 crores back in 2002, when it was quite an amount. And I was supposed to manage and be responsible for about 100 people. On top of it all, a completely new country with a new culture and a different language. I had to learn French, and the deal was that I had to pick it up in 3 months flat and learn French, speak to people, handle it. So it was a challenge, but well, hard work and lady luck. So it kind of worked out in the end. And then from there on, I was lucky to move within Africa. I worked in different companies and traveled and stayed and was based in different countries in Africa. And in between, during my stint there, I also moved to Middle East and also managed some regions like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, and then back to Dubai. So it was like a lot of travel and a lot of work. Because of that expectation of being an entrepreneurial kind of person and trying to merge it with the idea of traveling, I gained a lot of experience. It was not an easy thing for a lot of people. Some people prefer stability and having a house and having family and working together based in a single city. Internationally, that's how it is. And some people like to travel. For me, again, luckily, it worked out and I moved to different places and handled companies with turnovers from 100 crores right up to 100 crore rupees and moved up to $200 million, which is about 1,500 crores of business. And this I kept doing for about 23 odd years and 22 years actually. And then I got an opportunity to work as a consultant. I was initially based in Dubai, and then I moved to Canada. And currently, as Meravi had earlier mentioned, and Ajay had mentioned as well, that I'm now based in Canada. I'm working with small entrepreneurs who own salons and beauty parlors or small offices or advertising agencies or boutique businesses that they do. And we, as a team, we work towards redesigning, redeveloping, or redoing their businesses to an extent. And that's what I'm doing now. So the idea is that if you can pursue what you like, if you can merge your passion with what you do, I think you will be happy. And don't believe everything that you hear from everywhere. Do your own learnings, choose your own path. Now, coming to the topic of today's webinar, let me start with some data that I quote from the, not really quote, I mean, I can just paraphrase it. I don't remember it by heart, but I was reading about it from Lucknow here in the brand equity section of the Economic Times. And there is this British research firm called Crosby Textor. They ran a survey across, I think it was in May, probably, May or June perhaps, I think May. They ran a survey last month about various world geographies, how they feel about the post-COVID lockdowns and situations. And probably, I don't know if some of you have read it, but I was shocked to know that 86% of Indians feared job losses and they were worried about what's going to happen to their livelihood. And that is a huge difference compared to 30% or 32% in that range for people who live and work in Britain and US and Australia. And the survey also gave some data where about 12 crore people in India lost their jobs in the previous 2-3 months, and about 25% of the Indian households were impacted by this economic crisis. So it's a scary scenario, but I have felt, I'm not raising it here to make you fear about what's going to happen when you move out of your college. What I'm trying to say is that I was very puzzled. India is a very large economy, a growing economy, and as our previous speakers have mentioned, there is so much optimism, and yet there is so much fear about job losses. So the sad part of today's reality is that the job losses are going to be across the board, across all levels, across industries, and across geographies. Some industries may have less job losses, like the IT sector or the ITES sector. Probably travel, tourism, hospitality, aviation might see a huge number of job losses. But at the same time, maybe retail also will see a lot of job losses. But I don't think it's going to be all encompassing and everywhere. This does not mean that it is all doom and gloom and people have to just wait and see what's going to happen. No, I really feel, and I'm looking at it not just from the Indian context, but looking at it from the US and Canada context as well. US 40 million people lost their jobs, and still immediately they are picking up. India 12 crores lost, and already some 2 or 3 crores are back in the job. So things will improve. This is a temporary situation. Things will improve, but the changes will be there. This is not going to be, post-COVID is not going to be the same scenario as pre-COVID. Sorry. So people who adapt and adopt, I think will not only survive, but they will thrive. And business organizations will try to traverse overwhelming competing challenges and uncharted waters. Jobs, I think, will get re-architectured and reconfigured, like we used to be, and Mr. Nand Kumar was mentioning how organizations have moved from multi-levels to more flat structures. Difference between the super boss and the middle management is like 1 or 2 levels, maybe lesser. So those restructuring, that will only get expedited. In my point of view, the industries that are likely to do better than the others probably would be obviously the IT and ITES sectors, the news and entertainment, the media, finance and banking, pharma, broadband, the home delivery economies of Amazon sending stuff to your homes, for example, online gym classes, cooking classes, people developing apps, something what we nowadays call the home body economy. FMCG will continue to grow. People do need the soap and detergent. Online education is likely to grow. Remote learning will probably grow. And these industries are likely to be less impacted than others, like, as I mentioned before, tourism. In IT and ITES, I feel a lot of work from home will start happening more than what it is happening now. New protocols will be developed, higher security levels, but jobs, I think, will remain protected. And, you know, the interesting part is that the world is quite connected these days, and it looks likely to become even more connected. Yet, I feel manufacturing will see a slight shift from China, for example. I feel that a lot of local factories will come up in different countries. I'm seeing it happening in Canada already. I'm seeing it happening in India with the Atmanirbhar Bharat context. And so I feel that while digitally the world is going to be more connected, in terms of manufacturing, there will be more silos happening in different localities and regions and geographies. With the better connectivity digitally, as Mandula mentioned earlier, the gig economy, the incentive to immigrate to different countries and locations may not be there, and it won't be that strong either, even for the individuals or for the company. As Ajay mentioned, for me, I'm working as a consultant there, but currently I'm sitting here, that's 3 months in Lucknow, and I'm doing a lot of my job through the computer. So tomorrow, do I really need to go to Canada? I don't know. So while the digital world is likely to be more connected, as I said, the physical world is likely to just become more compact. This means there will be more opportunities rising in the manufacturing sector too. So, Kame, addressing it to you guys, all of you who are watching this, I see that in terms of being a professional, take the first steps. The professionals who are taking the first steps in the business world now, you need to learn to be more flexible and agile. I'm sure you already are. You're already connected. You're well read, and you'll be taught the same things by all the professors in the department. And experts who look into these matters, they make a prognosis which says that individuals who are more who will get better opportunities are the ones who will look at being more agile and flexible. They will be able to redefine, reskill, and redeploy themselves. They will be able to reset their mindsets, as again my previous speakers have mentioned repeatedly, that being open to new ideas, being open to do different things, not being compartmentalized, not being in your silos. I think that will work. You need to be very mentally strong, and you need to understand that while digital is the way and while connectivity is the way, but remember that you don't personally, as I remember Manjula mentioning it earlier, I don't think you need to be into digital technology. You don't need to be somebody who will develop an app. If you can do it, that's fabulous. You can go and do it. If you can be in a company and you're aware of computers and you have computer skills, by all means use them. But if you don't sweat, don't worry, don't fear. Because every single company, whether it is Amazon or HP or Times of India or Unilever or whosoever, every single company needs a finance manager or a sales manager or a marketing manager or a human resource manager, and every other stream that goes with it. So no matter which type of industry is there, if you are skilled and you're open to the idea, you can go and work. You can go and work for Google, and you can go and work for the Zoom app, which we are using now. Zoom needs people in marketing, and when people are employed, Zoom needs people for human resource and for image management and for digital work. So every single stream is good stream as long as you are able to make sure you are doing what you like to do. And as Manjula mentioned before, and as Ambika's experience, and Nand through his own experience, we all went through our own journey. We all set out our own path. We started with something, we realized we are good at it or we like it, we continued with it, or we felt no, we want to change it a bit, we moved into a different direction, and we all did well. So for you guys, I mean, very quickly before I wrap up, I would say focus on your skills, be very good with your communication, and keep on improving on your communication, whether it is reading, writing, oral, digital, your body language. Make sure communication is the key in today's age. So don't ignore it by any means. You may be very good with whatever you are at, whether it is finance. I know people say finance people don't really communicate well, or they don't need to communicate well. Their numbers or their calculations speak for them. That is correct. But yet, you will realize when you go through and in your business environment, a lot of people who grow in the finance stream are very good communicators. Even though their numbers speak for them, they also know how to speak for themselves. So your fundamental skills of communication and problem solving, critical thinking, do not ignore them by any means. Continue to sharpen your personal management skills, like be adaptable, be open, be willing to learn continuously, be open to change, manage your time well, really well. And remember, in today's economy, teamwork is critical. So by no means should you ignore that part. It will not work whether you are a digital person or you are in marketing or sales or HR or finance or anything. You have to be able to know how to negotiate, how to persuade, how to be socially aware, and you need to show that you're willing to participate in team activities, projects, and tasks. So from my side, I think that is all. I would wrap it up and say that go ahead, be open to new ideas, and be prepared to go the extra mile. That's all from me now. Thank you, Ajay.
Thank you, Gaurav. With that, let me open the session for questions and answers, where I can invite some direct questions also from the students. Although I see that on the chat group, there have been a number of questions which the students have been asking, and I find that all the speakers, they are answering. Whenever someone is raising a hand, I'll surely come up with that question. I'll unmute you and go ahead with that. That is one part of it. On the other, let me ask you, Nand Kumar, what should our students do as a part of becoming entrepreneurs in this environment? So how should they be coming up? What should be their preparation? Nand Kumar. Unmute yourself. Yeah.
So fundamentally, whatever the previous three speakers spoke about, the awareness environment, awareness of the business area in which they want to become an entrepreneur, and awareness of some core fundamental skills which are required to be an entrepreneur. Of course, risk-taking abilities right at the top of the agenda. You should be in a position to accept failure. All entrepreneurs are going to become successful on day one. People go through multiple rounds of failure before they can become successful. Paytm took 10 years to be there where they are today. So that is point number one. Point number two is a basic understanding of functions. So even though Gaurav mentioned about numbers, if you are serious about becoming an entrepreneur, you have some fundamental understanding of balance sheet, P&L accounts. So these are all things which an investor may ask you. If they're willing to, they're going to ask for money, you're in a position to articulate how you're going to manage your P&L, where are your revenues going to come from, how you're going to manage costs, how you're going to manage people. So even though you are an entrepreneur with a great idea, it could be a tech idea, it could be I don't know, something around farming, there are some fundamentals which you need to be aware. And if you are, when you say you, it could be you or a group of, I don't know, 4 or 5 of you friends, so you have this common, understanding of the business and what it takes to build a business. I think that's what people look at. Even if I'm an investor or a venture capitalist or somebody, even if I'm somebody who's interested in buying a product, I need to know what this company is all about. It's right from vision about what you want to do and how you're going to do it. So the basic understanding of whatever you're learning with MBA curriculum today holds good there. Yeah, but of course, going forward, the individual facets will need to be developed. And as I mentioned before, as an entrepreneur, it's very difficult to do it alone. I think I've seen it many times personally. It's just do it at least 2 or 3 in a group of 3, 4 or 5. So if you bring complementary capabilities, and then you can do a better job of it. But the basic fundamentals of management are extremely required if you really serious about becoming an entrepreneur. Manjula, do you want to add something?
Great. Manjula, there is some more that you can add to it.
No, I think Nandu's covered it pretty well.
Are promoting social entrepreneurship in India is a misunderstanding. Hello. Yeah, Manjula.
Yeah, Ajay, your question wasn't audible. Your voice broke.
Okay, now what we are saying is that when we are talking about entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship is a misunderstood concept in India. So
right.
Do you think social entrepreneurship is actually coming up, and is social entrepreneurship any different from entrepreneurship in India, especially in the Indian context? Should they come up with it?
Right. So there are 2 parts to that answer. The first and the simpler part to the answer is that social entrepreneurship has always been there. Some people might argue that business, by the mere fact of existence, is giving employment to people and therefore is doing social good. Having said that, profit is the main purpose of any business, rather the only purpose of any business in existence. And so somewhere there is a clash between social goals and the business goals. Yeah. So therefore this whole concept of social entrepreneurship that came up sometime in the 70s actually, and has gained momentum gradually over the years, not so much before the last 1 decade or so. But going forward, the way things are, and Ambika and Nandu, both of them will actually corroborate what I'm saying. all businesses have to be conscious, all businesses have to be socially responsible, all businesses have to ensure that they are not having a negative impact in any way on the environment. That's the first part of being socially conscious as a business. The next part is actually actively taking on problems for the bottom of the pyramid and solving them with this perspective that I will not go out looking for a dole. I will solve this problem and I will create value in the business that I build, and I will at the same time solve this specific problem. So there are a huge number of examples that are actually there. Avishkar in Telecap is the first fund in the country that started supporting businesses that are doing social good. If you go through their portfolio, or if you go through all the business. So for me, the biggest example of a social entrepreneurship today is Elon Musk building Tesla and the cars that he's building. So look at the vision of that one man who says, okay, let me think so big. Let me solve the biggest issues that the world's facing. So look at fossil fuel, solve fossil fuel as a concern, look at alternative fuels, look at solar, and look at battery operated in such a way that we can actually run our lives on renewable energy. So that's social enterprise in its best example that I can think of.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have I answered? I don't know if
yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Anyone?
I'm happy to add in a perspective here, and of course, the question is
on the students. In the meantime, can come up. Ambika, okay, you want to say something? Please come up.
Not at all. Very quickly, just because Manjula raised this point, and it is true. Any corporate at this point is taking the whole CSR route, right? But beyond that, the values and the culture for a lot of companies that has sustained, and you see our brands that have lived for long, they always tend to have a social goal aside of this, right? How they started. For us, one of the values that we talk about and is part of our purpose. So firstly, with the whole concept of mission statement that we used to learn in our MBAs has moved to a purpose. Any company, and particularly the American companies in Silicon Valley in technology, talk about what is really the purpose of your product and your service. It's not just the shareholders and the profits. So in a way, it's not antagonistic. We talk about a value of being the force for good, and anything you do in your roles, you're being a force for good. Coming to social entrepreneurship, a lot of brands that we actually don't know about, like for instance, a great example of Tesla, but even others are Nike and Tom's, which are shoes brands. Tom's started as every shoe that is bought, and this is a US brand, but I do want to talk about is that you can actually have set up a business, and it can have a profit motive, but at the same time will have social social good in mind. Every shoe that you buy in Tom's, the second is donated to developing nations, including, I think, India is one of the markets initially, at least, that they had. Or in the sector or the location that you set up a business might need those jobs. And even if you're setting up a for-profit organization, it still fulfills a social entrepreneurial purpose. So I think the easier way to look at, of course, is those purely social entrepreneurial firms. Like Gund is very, very powerful in India, and they've reached in Southeast Asia, etc. But also, whenever you are thinking of setting up something, look at, first question to ask is, what problem am I solving? And in your context, right? Look at that. Frankly speaking, any business to sustain has to have some social good in mind. Otherwise, we have a lot of examples, including of Uber and others, who could not sustain because there was the whole profit motive, or the leadership not keeping the ethics in mind, led to the downfall. So I think I just wanted to put that across. And the other thing that I do want to say is that if you are thinking, and I know because we're also short on time, if you're looking at entrepreneurial careers, it is a great idea, but I will say that it is also a path that seems easy from a distance. So there are certain things that you really have to be very, very clear about. You should be able to work with your own vision, as well as, of course, you pull in people. But you should be able to do a lot more 24/7 work. There was a question around how do you manage work, life, family. If you're someone who prefers boundaries, probably it is not an easy start. Also, to be an entrepreneur, a lot of ideas which seem very exciting, and we jump on. I remember they should not be driving. What should drive is your capability, your market, and your context. So just highlighting that at this point of time. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Ambika. Any of the faculty members who wants to ask any of the questions which comes to their mind? And then we can go for the golden words from Professor J.K. Sharma.
Well, I'm so happy to...
Himanshu ji, Ritu ji, Ved ji. Yeah, sir. Please go ahead.
Happy to listen to my students. They're all grown up. I'm very mature. So happy to see they're doing very well in life. And extremely happy you are willing to share with employing back to the department the best of your wisdom you sharing. Thank you so much. We look forward to more of association with you. Thank you.
Questions?
Ajay, are you there? I think we've lost you.
You are there. The question mark on you. Is it? I am there, but no voice. You are not getting me?
No, now it's okay. Now it's okay.
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you.
It's okay. Okay, fine. Any other faculty member wants to say something? Ved Srivastav, you want to say something? Something?
Yeah. So this is Ritu this side. I'm sorry. There is
I think on that count, I would say that everybody.
No, Ajay.
Yeah, Ritu, go ahead.
Sorry, Ajay, there's a question from Ms. Ritu Narang.
Yeah,
or a comment.
There is very inadequate light at the moment in our house. There is a power cut. So that's That's why probably there's not adequate light and you
go
can't.
Ahead, Ritu, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's really been a very interactive, I would say, a very interesting rather, very interesting interaction. And very nice that all of you came in and shared your experiences. It's really very nice to hear you all. I have never met you. So I also passed out from Lumba in '89 and then later on joined in '96. So there's one little thing which really concerns me, bothers me, and I always wonder if there was some way if you could help us, because a lot of you have a marketing background and interest, and you have also worked with Mudra and so many other advertising companies, Times Group and all, particularly Manjula, I was listening to, Manjula. So is there any way we could have, our students going in for some kind of internship in advertising in media? Some of them really express desire, like Shreya has been also wanting to know. So we are somewhere not able to bring people from advertising because, I don't know, for whatever reason. So if you could guide us, even for final placement, some of them are interested in media and advertising, but normally they, land up in going for a marketing job or an executive job, though their interest area lies in advertising and media. So could you help us with that?
So I don't know if I have a structured answer at this point in time. There are multiple answers actually. Some of the students have also asked similar questions on the chat. The simple answer is please reach out, please look at opportunities. The best thing about agencies and media is they are very democratic. Gaurav and I, in our own time, we reached out, we did the rounds. He landed up at India Today. I landed up at actually Rediffusion, and then from Rediffusion to Mudra, and then to, in my case, to Times of India. But things have become far more complicated since then. I unfortunately do not have a direct connect with agencies at this point in time. It's been a very long time since I was working in an agency. As an alumni, I would love to help out and I'd love to do what I can. There are placement consultants who work specifically only with agencies. What I can do is I can share some of those names and numbers. Students can talk specifically to these placement consultants. That would help. Even if, you know, one or two people are able to crack a couple of places, then pulling in others is easier. Then this batch pulls in the next batch and the next batch pulls in the next batch. Then it becomes very simple to do. So at a Times of India, if somebody is seriously interested even at ABP, I can ask. I'm only doing a gig there. But in agencies, we will have to figure out how to do this. I don't have a very specific answer right now, ma'am.
So Manjula, actually, I was looking at something different. See, I also worked at Benetton. Yes, Ananda, we'll come back to you. So I also did my summer internship at Bennett Group, Times of India in Delhi. So I'm not particularly talking from a student perspective. I'm talking from the department perspective as a faculty of marketing. If you know, we are able to bring them in to take some kind of special lectures in our department, then that really helps to sort of, you know, build a connect. Yeah, so if you could give us some links with that perspective, that will help us. Yes, Nand Kumar, you were really wanting to say something. Please, over to you.
So one thing which I think I would suggest to all students, particularly who are interested in advertising careers, is to build up a very good...
Shouldn't be an issue. Nand, yeah, tell us, what are you saying?
Yeah, so build up a very good, so I'll start again. So one thing I want to tell all the students, and who are...
I think you're not very clear.
Yeah.
Nando, be a bit close.
Is it better now?
Your mic, yeah. Yeah, it's much better.
One thing I wanted to tell everybody, including the students, not only advertising, pretty much any career is to build a solid social media profile. That really helps. Put out your thought leadership things on LinkedIn and put a lot of hashtags around ideas which you're interested in. You'll be surprised how many people reach out to you. I think that's something which, to be honest, I also learned, and the Indians are a bit weak at that. You have to really build up your social media credibility, because a lot of perceptions are built about you and the organizations you represent based on what you put out in social media. I think you should do that. I think even the department should do that. I would suggest, please do that. It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of impact. You'll be surprised how much impact it makes. That's what I want to tell you.
I think that the department and Ms. Narang, whoever wants to lead this initiative, you also need to get on to following these different agencies and maybe even launching a LinkedIn discussion group. If you have a LinkedIn page, that is very important, right, for Lumba. Launch a discussion group related specifically to advertising. And please invite, because I think a lot of times the formal invites may not reach, but on LinkedIn people might reach out. I think the second thing what we can, and I'm speaking for my ex-batchmates, I don't know whether they will be available, but there are a few others who are currently in advertising or they are running their own ad agencies. We'll definitely mention this need that you have put forward. I'm sure they'll be happy. Some of them will be happy to come up on a Zoom session and specifically talk to what you want to talk about in advertising. But yeah, no promises. We'll try and we'll come back to you on it.
That's very nice, very nice. I think Gaurav also wants to say something. Yes, Gaurav.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, very quickly, I would say that something from the department context, which in fact Ajay and the rest of us have earlier discussed as well. that if there are a couple of students, I'm just trying to address the specific point that you raised regarding the department. So if a couple of students in the senior batch and a couple of students in the junior batch, they kind of form a group and interact closely with you, for example, and start doing create a platform where you would start formally inviting people and mix and merge it with LinkedIn networking and with our alumni, not just our batch, but even the senior batches and the junior batches who are there in the business currently. So that networking really helps. And what I see internationally is what really starts turning it into a sort of a snowball. And for example, if the department with the students can organize a couple of marketing sessions or advertising sessions, especially inviting some couple of people from outside, putting it out on YouTube or having a page and saying this person came and did a lecture with us, those kind of things, once they start happening, more and more people will come in. So the idea, like I remember in our time, we tried to do some sort of a event which ultimately did not work out. But like when Manjula mentioned, I, for example, when I went to Delhi after MBA, I landed a job with Business Today as a brand manager, not because of anything except for perseverance and talking to people and interacting. So if somebody from India Today was already coming to Lumba at that time or even now, that would help them understand what MBA is about with the students here. And that communication which can be built up with this networking and keeping multiple things together like social networks and LinkedIn becomes very important, and having people being invited over to talk to the students will really hopefully change the scenario. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you. Ved, you were interested in asking something? Ved, were you interested in asking?
Ajay sir, my phone was on.
I think so.
So when at that point of time, I couldn't actually come ahead, right? So I mean,
no problem. No problem. Ask. Tell us. Yeah.
Only thing that I'd like to say is that I'd like to really thank all of you for, I mean, on the behalf of my students, actually, who have got such a wonderful opportunity. Though some of them I'm unable to find, and who have been asking me a lot of questions whenever I'm around. I think a lot of their questions would have been answered had they been here today. So I think the people who are here, they actually should pass this all whatever they have gone through today to their batchmates as well, because this was a wonderful opportunity for all of them, because they have been posing a lot of questions to me. A lot of questions would have been answered today. So thank you, Ajay sir and Medali sir and everybody, I mean, for this wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, so correct.
I think we are all going to tell you, Dr. Ved, that the session has been recorded. I believe, Ajay, I think we are recording this, right? So this can be shared.
It is recorded, and it is recording and being recorded, and will be shared on Lumba channel. So that's not at all an issue. But yes, had those students been here, because we've only had a total around 37 students over here. So had others been over here, they could have asked direct questions to this STM group. But anyway, no problems at all. So I think we are done with each and everything. No more questions, no more issues. It's really been great.
Gaurav have been here.
Gaurav has a question, something.
Yeah, Gaurav wants to say.
Please, Gaurav.
Gaurav has a last word and a joke.
Go ahead, Gaurav.
No. Just a reminder, Ajay, what we discussed, that it's not only just the four of us. We've, like what Ambika was mentioning, there is an entire batch we have. And if I'm responding to Dr. Ved, that in case students have any specific questions, they can mention them to Ajay or any of us, and specific webinars can be organized subsequently addressing those specific questions of those students. So that is not going to be an issue. That's all.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, so that is an offer from the 1995 batch, which is the Silver Jubilee batch, and batch actually decides to come up with 19th and 20th of December as a Silver Jubilee celebration at the university. But these are uncertain times. We never know how it comes up. But there are a lot of preparations which I'll see all of these people also in person at that time. But before that, if the students can establish a good relationship with them, I think this is just an overture of those 120 students in that batch which are there. So we were just 5 today over here. I think most of them are there, placed very well today. Some of them have even taken their retirement by now. So that's what I'd like to tell you. Fine. So that's been there. And thank you to all the faculty members. Thank you all the speakers. Thank you all the students for a very good interaction. And I do understand that it has been an excellent interaction today. Let's hope that we have more of these on a continuous basis, so that by the time we reach 19th and 20th of December, we might have exposure to nearly all those people who are there in that Silver Jubilee batch of 1995. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.